Hello, and welcome to Problem Solve Her. I'm your host, Chloe.
And I'm your host, Dagmar.
And here we are with one of our first podcasts with the incredible Michelle Valdes. So I'm going to let Michelle tell you a little bit about herself. Before that, I'm going to prep it by saying she is the first and only Latina.
Very good.
Right? Was that good? Latina.
Was-
I had some Puerto Rican and Dominican friends, mommy, okay? The first and only Latina board certified in Admiralty and Maritime Law by the Florida Bar. Excuse me, Fancy Pants? Miss Fancy Pants?
I don't know what that means to me, but anyway.
I mean, it's fancy for me to be the first and only in something that's very inspiring for a lot of women. And we would love to hear, first of all, you just kind of give us a little bit about your background, and then we're going to have a really fun game, and we're going to ask you some questions to help you prepare.
Okay. So, wow, background. So, both my parents are Puerto Rican. My mom brought me to Florida, literally like 8 months pregnant. I guess that was a thing back then. I don't know. Had me in Central Florida, was born and raised on the water, loved shrimping, fishing, scalloping, doing all that stuff you do in Central Florida because otherwise it's boring. And never thinking that I would end up in maritime law, but go to law school, so I fast forward, go to law school. And next thing you know, I'm getting the best grade in a class called Admiralty. And the prize for that was working as a maritime law firm as a law clerk, as a law student. And the rest is kind of history. I've got 2 kids, 2 daughters, 22 and 26, exactly. I have been married 37 years to the same man. We also work together, so
Don't forget that.
I have my own law firm, and I couldn't do it without him because he keeps all the accounts straight. He chases clients for money. He does all the back office icky stuff I don't want to do. I just want to practice law. I enjoy doing it. I've been doing it for over 30 years. It's a way of helping people in this way, and I love it.
Amazing.
That's beautiful.
But he knows you're the boss, right?
That's what he tells people. I'm actually surprised when he says that, but yeah.
I love it. He does say that because I actually heard him say it at the Palm Beach Boat Show.
Well, there you go. There you go.
Well, thank you again for joining us at Problem Solve Her. And what we want to do tonight is ask you a few questions. It can come from a personal standpoint or a business standpoint in your answers. But really what we're looking to do is just help empower women. We want young women to have a place where they feel safe and heard and seen. And maybe they're looking for guidance right now. The world's kind of, it's a little upside down and people are trying to figure out what they want to do with their lives. And even if we can just touch 1 woman, 10 women, hundreds of women, and give them some kind of guidance and that confidence and that inner strength and independence that they need. Because when I was younger, I wish I had my older self now, when I was 20 something, to be like in my 40s, I don't care. And I'm confident and this is me, and take it or leave it. Thank you and goodbye. So that being said, the first question of the evening is, and take your time with this.
Okay.
You can say it backwards or forwards, whichever way you want to start it. In
No problem.
5 words or more. It doesn't have to be the T. Describe yourself in your very best moment, and then kind of at your worst one.
I know.
But you can start with the worst and then go to the best, however you want to do it. But just get concentrated.
All right.
How you solve it.
I mean, they're on opposite ends, right? So if 5 words, I would say best would be organized, clear, and focused.
Mm.
That to me is an amazing day. If I could just have those three things, I'm great. Now, worst, I would say overwhelmed and discombobulated. It's the opposite.
Hey, at least you can admit that. A lot of people won't even go there.
Have to. I mean, I think my best days are when I follow prayers in the morning, have a focus. I need that time in the morning to get myself set for the rest of the day.
Mm.
And then at night to be able to do the same thing, to kind of, even if it's just 5 or 10 minutes, to evaluate how the day was and where things could have been better, and then let them go.
Are you doing that on your own with inside yourself, or you're talking with your husband about that, or your daughters, or that's kind of your time?
That's my time.
Mm.
That's totally my time. I think my husband would be like, what?
Are you saying those things out loud, or that's actually in your head and then that's like you said it?
Right. So I actually speak out loud as if it were kind of a prayer, I guess,
Mm.
in a very basic way. That's what I do. So it works for me. I sleep amazing when I do that, and we all need, I mean, the key is we all need the sleep that we need to get. And to be able to do that every day is the gift to myself.
Well,
Yeah,
self-care.
absolutely.
When did you explore that this is something what works for you, and how were you before? Like if you look back in your 20s and 30s, how you were then and how you are today, like what did you learn? What gives you this inner peace and balance and self-care?
Well, it being a lawyer and a litigator, you're being pulled in 12 different directions, and then you add family to the mix. There's a reason why a lot of lawyers end up finding themselves divorced or something else, right?
Mm.
And it's because they don't take that time. I was, to answer your question, I would say I probably started this during the pandemic.
Mhm.
The pandemic to me was a gift in the sense that it allowed me to reset everything
Mm.
and to kind of really take the time to evaluate what was important in my life. And that time I realized became vitally important. So even if it means me getting up at 5 in the morning to be able to do that, I will do that. And even if it means, my bedtime, because of 5 in the morning, I'm normally trying to do lights out by 10. But if for whatever reason I can't make that work, even if it's 10:30, I tell myself I need to give myself at least 5 minutes to at least do that. And it's amazing. I wake up as refreshed as if I would have gone to bed on time,
Really?
because you're essentially unloading. You're
Mhm.
you're giving that up to whatever you want to call it, the universe, the creator, God, just out there in the ether, whatever you want to call it. I feel that it's of utmost importance for me to do that.
I have a question because I like to know this with a lot of people in general. Do you have a TV in the bedroom?
No.
Either do I. My friend in LA years ago had a feng shui specialist from Japan. He was living in LA and he came in and he said the three most important things in your home. This is all you need to know. You don't have to learn anything else because there's a lot to learn about being feng shui
Right.
in general. No TV in the bedroom, no fan over you when you're sleeping because the choppiness has an effect on your REM.
Yeah,
And
I don't have that either.
yep. And your kitchen should represent family and travel. If you can do those three things, you will create a peaceful life. It sounds crazy, Well, those are the three things. I haven't had a TV in the bedroom in over 10 years. Do you have a TV in the bed? No. See, guys, we're already on top. We're already doing it. But I think that's part of why you can go to sleep at 10:30 and have that time, because I feel like people get stuck watching the news or a movie or a series in bed.
No.
Oh God, it's 11, 10 more minutes.
Let it run.
Yeah.
Through the night.
Through the night, the TV's on really loud, or it's 12. No, I have to watch 20 more minutes. It's 1 a.m. And then,
Right.
you know.
No. And the phone gets put down and put away from me so that I don't access it. Yeah, it's very important.
So it sounds like you really have your life pretty well together and always thought through and followed your passion. Were there any time, like something you experienced that brought you out of that balance?
Oof.
We're getting heavy here, girl. We're going right in for it.
Look, I will say that, right, we are subjects of our experiences, right? And I think we're brought on this planet to learn from those experiences. So I'm going to get into a real nasty thing where I was not like this as a young person. Like many women, I can say that I have suffered from, for lack of a better word, an assault. It occurred when I was very young. And you know, I would say in my 20s and 30s, never in a million years would have ever thought of even mentioning something like that. And through that introspection and the prayer that I mentioned that I do, I learned that in fact it was like a poison that couldn't remain inside. And the only way to overcome something like that wasn't my fault, was to be absolutely honest about it. I have to say that and the way it clicked for me was not, it was another woman in my life that had suffered something very similar to me. Before then, I had totally remained silent about it. I had never uttered a word about what had happened to me. I was, like I said, very young. Once I explained to her, and it was someone that was really suffering, that she was not the only one that had been through something like that. You know, to hear from someone that I think she felt I was a very strong person, and this had happened to me, allowed her to move forward in dealing with her own trauma. And me being open about it to another woman that was close to me allowed me to also heal from that experience. And then in healing from that experience, it dawned on me that, look, spiritually, we're all here to overcome things we're faced with and to not be victims of circumstance, right? But rather to harness that circumstance to better the world. Right? So that was probably the toughest thing I had ever, and people have dealt with a lot worse than that, right? I mean, we as women suffer all kinds of crazy things, right? Catcalls and just guys that are improper, and then whatever happened to me. But at the end of the day, that experience gave me such respect, right? So it's like this greatest thanks to all the women that speak up and say, this has happened and this is wrong.
Yes.
So you feel like it kind of also helped you find your voice in a way?
It helped me find my voice, and it also helped me find, it was like something that was shoved so far down in there that allowing that to come out into the light and heal was like this huge, and I didn't realize I even had this weight, right? This huge weight was lifted, and it allowed me to be a more authentic person. And in doing so, feel comfortable in saying, because I think we all come from fight, flight, right? When we're really hit in the nasty, right? They say we're either fight, flight, or freeze. As a kid, because you're a kid, I froze because I didn't know what else to do because I was a kid. And and now I think if I look at it today, if something like that were to happen to me today, I wouldn't be a freezer anymore, right? I'd probably be a fighter. Maybe I'd run away. I guess it depends on the circumstance, but my point being is that you get to your more authentic self, but you can only do that if you deal with your you-know-what, right?
Right, absolutely. But what you just said, it also helps you to figure out how to regulate your nervous system. Right?
Absolutely.
Because if you instinctively only do fight, flight, or freeze, then you have no other options, right? But that means everything can trigger that if you get a bad email, if you get a statement from the bank, if you have something with your taxes. Like this.
No one wants statements from banks. Nobody.
And it triggers you. And if this situation helped you to regulate your nervous system, it's not just the healing of the situation with yourself, but also it changed you how you deal with life.
Absolutely. So I would never say to anyone that what happened to me was necessarily a gift.
Yeah, I would say it was.
But the way I would put it is that it was something that was put in front of me to learn from and to be able to give. Right? So whether you want to call that a gift, I think that we're ultimately all here to be sharers and givers and not takers. So in that sense, by shoving it down, I did no one any good.
Yeah, and I think what you said, it's from a perspective, not a gift that looks pretty, but gifts also in other countries and other languages is an enrichment, right?
Yes, that's fair. That's a fair way to put it.
And without a question, and I think perhaps, I'm not sure, women speak more about it than men because we are just more on the emotional side, right? Or communicative side. But if we learn to see life as an experience where we make the best out of it instead of seeing the scenarios, what happens to us, and feeling the heaviness and staying in the heaviness. Like you cannot change the heaviness. You cannot change what happens to us. We have no control over the environment or the outside. We only have control over us and how we deal with it.
Right.
And you did that beautifully. And not only that you dealt with it beautifully, but you could change the life of another woman by sharing that with her.
Sure. And it's funny that you mentioned the dichotomy between men and women in this issue. Literally a week ago, I had a young man, because I was very open about what had happened, he actually brought something out and he was in tears. And I said, look, I understand. And he was a Latino to make it even harder, right? And I said, look, you need to work through that because the fact that you're sharing that with me, and he was not someone that I actually know that well. I said, this is something that you're just like starving to try and get this and heal from this. And you need to do that. And if it means talking to someone else, it's not me. I'm not a therapist. I wouldn't know the first thing about that. I mean, I'm very happy to talk to you And we had a nice long conversation. And when he was all done, he said, I always felt so foolish for feeling this way. I guess because I'm a guy, and I guess we're supposed to think that it's acceptable for us to just like take something like this that's happened. And he said it, and you've helped me to understand that no, that's not, this was horrible what happened to me. And I want to try and heal from it. So it's definitely something. I mean, obviously, women are more open to it, but it's a huge issue.
Yeah. And what you just said, right? One thing is um, who's allowed to be more open. But the other thing also is how our childhood shapes us, what is okay and what is moral and what is not.
Right.
Right?
Absolutely.
So what is acceptable for the girls and what is acceptable for the boys. And so in this way, we really have barely a chance as children, or perhaps most of us as children, really understanding who we are. And then it takes bravery later to stand up to who you are.
Right.
Also culturally, I think depending on what your background is and where you grew up, like you said, like as a Latina woman, right? I'm American. We were talking about this earlier, but I grew up in a third world country in Jamaica, and a lot of things are acceptable there that wouldn't be acceptable here.
Right.
And culturally, a lot of people just kind of push things to the side or they don't deal with it. But healing, and what you're saying is if you can heal from a past trauma, that's why now, because I already know you, right? But hearing this from you for the first time now sheds more light on how you're so strong. Because I'm very drawn to other strong women. Some women that are strong, like, no, I don't want to, no, bring all the strong women around me, right? I want other independent, strong, confident women because
Sure.
it helps build each other up. Other women don't. They want more passive but that tells me a little bit more about who you are and how you are so strong and how you become so successful. Because part of that was you were saying, F this, you watch and see what I'm going to do. And here you are. And that's probably part of why you have gotten as far as you have and been such a renegade in your field, right? You're in a male dominated industry.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I'll give you a little story of this was, I think, the second and last, or was it the third? I don't remember if there was a third. So you guys might remember the old Sea Escape days. Sea Escape had gone through bankruptcy a few times. So I was representing the line with its last and final bankruptcy. And one of its vessels had gotten seized.
Mm-hmm.
And when a vessel gets seized, of course, everybody and their mother that has given credit to the ship come out of the woodwork because they want to get paid.
Oh, yeah. 15 years ago.
And I will tell you that in that courtroom, my judge is a very well-known federal judge who's since retired. She was an aviation lawyer, unbeknownst to me at the time. So it was little old me and about 50 other male lawyers that were all arguing. And, eventually I couldn't hold off the sale of the vessel any longer. And she was eventually sold to pay off the creditors. But I remember seeing her about 6 months after the case was over. And she said, you know why I gave you so much time to try and come up with the money? But this was during 2008. We all know what was happening in 2008, right?
Crash.
Exactly. She said, you were just being ganged up so badly. And my experience doing aviation was the same as yours, or it was little old me and 50 other men like ganging up on me. So I really wanted to try and give you the opportunity. Unfortunately, it didn't work out, but And it was nice to get that background because number one, I didn't know that about her. And number two, it's exactly what it's like in the maritime industry. You know, it's almost always men, and and you need to be yourself. The one thing is there's a few. I remember very early on in this process, there was really no mentors at the time I started this back in 1994. And the one or two women in the entire country that did do maritime were almost very like manly, like they weren't themselves. I don't know how to explain it.
A more masculine approach. They didn't come from a feminine.
They felt like they needed to be tough, I think.
Mm-hmm.
But I think we could be ourselves and put our makeup and our lipstick and do everything else we want to do and be ourselves and be just as tough.
You could be a Doberman with heels on and some lip gloss.
Exactly. Exactly.
I love that. Thank you for sharing that.
Sure.
I think that's another reason why Dagmar and I really wanted to dive in to this type of a podcast, because I feel like I don't want to be redundant, but especially younger women, because we know that they're very consumed. You have younger daughters, by what people think about you and what you're wearing.
It's not only young.
Yeah, but I'm saying this generation very specifically right now is driven by how many followers and social media and who likes you.
These
and
things.
everybody think about
These
you.
things.
Yeah,
they're
exactly.
they're like, yeah.
And what brands you're wearing, and they are deep down insecure, right? And they want to have more confidence and more independence. And I think that the more stories we hear from real women like you that are authentic and come from a power perspective internally, and I just think it's amazing that we hear these types of stories, because a lot of women don't want to share this stuff. And I love how open you're being about it. And I hope that people, it resonates with them. It's important.
I think, Michelle, for me, it's more, it really doesn't matter, men or women. I think from a humanity perspective, we are in the direction where we are empty inside. And we just try to fill it with something from the outside, no matter if it's social media or a new dress or a new whatever,
a new man,
car, whatever.
Because I knew.
I think it's interesting to listen to you, and you seemed so happy and fulfilled in your business life and in your personal life, and how you balance both. And I did not find that a lot in my life, and that's for sure. It's like a treasure that you created for yourself, and I adore you for that.
Oh, well, thank you. It's very sweet of you. That's so sweet.
Oh, it's like, this is the true life gift, right? If you can find that in life and live a happy and fulfilled and healthy life, healthy emotionally, spiritually, physically, and mentally. What would you say was your biggest accomplishment? Like, just curious if you would choose something business-wise or life-wise, or where you feel really that.
I know the answer to this because she said it in the women's panel, but I'm going to let her say
it. Well, then I'll change it.
I remember what you said.
Let her say what she feels right now.
Well, then I'll change it, right? So let's shift it a little bit. So yeah, what I said in that women's panel we were on was the fact that I've been married 37 years, and our marriage is a true partnership, right? When people ask, and we work together, so we literally see each other practically 24/7.
And you still like him, which is like,
right.
Like a needle in a haystack.
It's funny because I'll be like, well, I have this event, and when he doesn't want to go, I'm like, really? You don't want to go?
Like, I've been with you for 12 hours, City Ready, and I'll see you at home tonight, and I'll see you in the morning.
But so that, I don't want to, you asked in terms of greatest accomplishment. That is a huge accomplishment, because to have someone that's your spouse, that's also probably your best friend, but not in like a weird way. Like, you know what I mean? In other words, there's still that spark, as opposed to, we're not coexisting.
Right.
You're not companions, that's what you say.
Right. In other words, I see marriages that are long term like ours, but I realize that they are remaining together because they're coexisting. It's convenient. It's just easier. That's not my marriage, so it's a loving marriage. We work very closely together in terms of, he knows I'm doing this. He's the one that cooks dinner Monday through Friday to make sure I can do things like this till late. We really work as a team to make our relationship work. But the reason why I was going to change it a little bit here is because what we've talked about, and I would say in terms of like the greatest accomplishments, is not only having that, but having, being a mom and having two very strong daughters.
Latina daughters.
I mean, I worked really hard to give them the independence, and over time I realized where I had to like shift that a little bit. So like one daughter, it was great, she was like me, type A personality. She was going to get amazing grades, got into her top school at Rutgers University. She's an actress today in Chicago, doing very well and looks super happy. My other daughter, I couldn't treat her the same, because I do agree with that adage that the kids in your household don't have the same parents. Each one has different parents because they're in different stages of a family life cycle, right? So my younger daughter is very strong-willed. She's an Aries, so she's really strong-willed. She's a super fire sign, hated school, hated focusing. I didn't know what to do with this kid. She went off. I still don't know how she got all these scholarships, went off to college, and came running back home saying, I want to stay home. So my 22-year-old is still in home. And she's studying at a local college, studying fashion marketing. And I will tell you that having that and having that dynamic, right, with my husband, with a 22-year-old at home, that takes a lot, but I love it. I mean, it's a challenge.
At the same time, right?
Sorry?
It's probably fun at the same time, right? Because she's not 35 living at home. She's 22. She still needs a lot of advice from her parents.
Oh, absolutely.
Probably thinks she knows more than you guys, and then you have to check her.
She's starting to shift. Yeah, it's amazing. Between 20 and say 22, they start making that shift and realizing mom may know a thing or two, and maybe even dad. I mean, they're not going to give him credit for that. They like, don't tell dad, but
I love it.
Yeah.
Amazing. So I'm curious, what's your 5-year plan?
Wow.
You have a 5-year
I love that, because I feel like that's what they ask you, like when you go to your first job. So
but they never asked me that at my first job either. But anyways, so I know women don't tend to share their age. I'm 58. And what?
I said you're more like 45.
So my husband's a little older. He's 61 now, and he's starting to ask me these questions. When do you want to retire? I can't even imagine that right now. Um, but what I will say is I have some things in the hopper in terms of still in the maritime industry. I also teach as an adjunct law professor at a local law school.
Wow.
And I see something, and I make it a point with my students that I make them go volunteer at a place called Seafarer's House. And I get them on ships and doing all kinds of things with the crew members. And it hasn't quite gelled what I'm going to do with all of that yet. But
I love that phrase, by the way. My dad says you have to have 5 things in the hopper at all times.
right,
Keep the plate spinning.
correct.
I love that for you.
Well, because I really do think we're brought here to really bring out whatever our soul was intended to do.
Yeah.
And I think what I'm doing is a piece of that puzzle, but it's not everything. And we're always meant to grow. And if we're not growing, like, what are we doing? Like, we're going to die, right? So that's why I can't tell you exactly because the plan is not quite fully gelled yet, but I can tell you that I keep doing different things. Yeah.
You have things in the works.
Right.
So it sounds really, perhaps consciously or subconsciously, you always followed a passion in your life.
Right.
Would you say by following a passion in your life, it made it easier to deal with obstacles because you had something you focused on and you wanted to accomplish, and you didn't give the value and the heaviness to the obstacle?
That's a lot there. What I'll tell you, Dagmar, is after that thing that had happened to me, I found solace in the water.
What does this mean? I don't know.
Solace is like a calmness, like she kind of, sorry, you tell your version of it. My bad.
Well,
no, you know why?
That's my life.
No, because, but tell her why. Because even though she's been here for a long time, there, like I said, we were talking earlier and I said chutzpah. And she said, I don't know what chutzpah means. I go, you're from Germany. It's a Yiddish word. Like,
it is a Yiddish.
All of my Eastern European relatives.
Michelle.
Yeah.
So look, this thing happened to me, and I felt that there was no one I could really go to. So even as a very young child, I used to go out with my dad on his boat, and we'd go fishing and snorkeling. And I remember approaching my dad, and I was 12 years old, and I said, I'd like to buy a flats boat. My dad kind of looked at me, and so he helped me to raise the money for me to buy my first boat at the age of 12.
Wow.
And I would go out with that little 75 horsepower flats boat practically every weekend. And it was a way to, it wasn't really, like I said, I kind of like stuffed it down, but at least it gave me some sort of release. And so that's why I found it a little surprising when I ended up doing the law that I do, because I continue to find solace, right? In other words, a calmness, a happiness, but it's a happiness that's just like a joy that is within me, right? That's what solace to me means. And to this day, I try to get out on the water at least 3 days a week. As Chloe knows, I'm a rower, so I compete, and I'm on a scull. out on the water this morning at 5:30 in the morning. But so, but it goes to finding that thing that gives you that internal peace. It could be nuts in this place. I mean, look at this desk. It's a disaster, right? But I feel a calmness here because I truly enjoy it. And I think that unless you find what that thing is, you're always going to feel unsettled.
Yeah.
Yeah.
To do what you're meant to do and meant to be.
Right. So it was very difficult I'll give you a great example. So it was, my daughters are both in the arts. I'm obviously not in the arts. My husband is also a lawyer. So my husband struggled with that because being from a Latin household, well, they have to do something that's going to make them money. You know, it's kind of like that was drilled in my head. Our generation, that was the thing. It was doing acting or fashion or something along those lines is frivolous. And I had to sit down with my husband and say, look, we have the financial wherewithal to allow them to do what brings them joy. And if we force them to do something that does not bring them joy, they're just going to stay at home because they're just not going to be fulfilled and are not going to be happy.
Or depressed.
Exactly. And that happened with my younger daughter when she went off to college. She became very depressed, you know, picked up the phone crying, saying, Mom, I just want to come home. I said, fine, come home. You know, we got a lot of criticism. You know, a lot of people you know what I say?
Why do people criticize?
You know what I say about opinions?
Everybody has one.
Everybody has one, just like what else does everybody have, right? So I just put that aside. And I said, look, this is what's better for my family is to allow my daughter to come home. Why am I going to force her to stay at a university she doesn't want to be at? Yeah, she's on a scholarship that she's probably going to lose because she's miserable. It's costing me a fortune for her to be miserable. Like, this makes no sense. Come home. And the minute she came home, she immediately changed her degree. She just reworked everything, and it's been a journey for her. It's been fun to show her, because she had to tweak that even a little bit, to be able to show her that she needs to, you know, we need to spend more time doing and focusing internally, because that's going to give you the right answer. If you're focusing externally on what everyone else is saying and getting advice from other people, it's all here. And if you focus, and that's why I think these darn things are really detrimental, because this allows you to doom scroll and you're never focusing here.
There's a disconnection.
That's what I'm saying. I think it's really this generation more than any other generation that is very obsessed and reliant upon devices. Your generation.
We all were.
They did other things.
Yeah, but this
I think we all were, you know. Yes. It may have dawned on us later, right? Like, I see some 15-year-old girls that look like they're going on 35, but because they've got this. But at the end of the day, we all were suffering from that because there's just so much peer pressure in school.
It's a lot.
It's a lot. So it's as though if I could wave a magic wand, I would want there to be, I don't know what you want to call it, a mindfulness center, or at every single school, every single university, every single big business, every single organization, because I really do think that that's the key to success, is knowing what this needs. If you're not focusing on what this needs and you're focusing outwards, you're going to be like 60 years old with the light bulb finally coming on. Some some people are 80 years old and they still haven't had the light bulb go off, you know?
Many people die with that. I mean,
Correct.
is that something, like we're coming to the end of our session, is that something what you would wish our listeners to take away from our get together today, that they're going into being mindful and focusing on mindfulness to find what you obviously found? What is the English word for the
Solace.
Solace.
for the solace?
If let's not use that word. I mean, that word works for me because I can tend to be very like hyper when I want to be. I would say inner peace, joy. I think every year, I do this every year. I do it during Rosh Hashanah. Other people could decide to do it in other periods of time. When I was younger with young girls, I used to do it at the New Year. I literally do almost like I write down all the things that I want to discard for the year. And I literally take that piece of paper and I burn it. Sometimes I do it with a group of girlfriends at my house. Like it depends. But this idea of what is it going internally do I see is not serving me anymore, right? It could be something as silly as a certain organization. It could be something more serious about toxic people in my life. It could be, it could be a number of different things. But to take that piece of, right, because you've taken the time to think about it, you've gone internally.
You brought it up. Yeah, you brought it to the surface.
You've brought it to the surface. And so whether you want to call it, Dagmar, mindfulness, whether you want to call it talking to the creator, whether you want to talk, you want to call it just, all right, universe, help me out here. Whatever it is, it's all here.
Yeah.
So it's just a matter of bringing it up, and then the garbage, like chucking it. And I've noticed that when I do that, I have more robust relationships. I'm happier in what I'm doing. I see where I'm putting my energies. Like, let's say in a business organization, I start to see the things that I could put into it that's going to give not only myself but the people that I'm working with more. And it just it makes it into a constant evolving relation, the stuff you want to keep. And isn't that really what we want, is just that joy in our lives, to know that what we're doing is making this a better place? Because if we turn on the TV, I mean, I don't even own a TV, so I'll watch TV.
You're smart. It's kind of better right now to be naive of what's going on in the world.
So, well, my husband's one of those that really likes to watch a lot of TV.
Oh,
so,
my parents are.
but he does it on, I got him to get rid of the TV like 10 years ago. So now he watches TV on this. It's like, oh no.
I know, that's what everyone, yeah.
But my point being is, if I could use a phrase, I would say internal or inner joy.
Inner joy, that's beautiful.
And how you find that. Mindfulness was just a word that I used to try and express that, but it's really finding what's here. I mean, don't we have to love ourselves before we love anybody else?
100%.
So
Absolutely.
so don't we have to like figure out what we're doing before we can actually
Oh,
like bring
absolutely.
somebody else into the fray? And so I
100%.
just don't think we do enough of that.
No.
And being alone with yourself is so important. A lot of people can't spend any time alone. I'm so grateful for my alone time and just being one-on-one with me. And a
Right.
lot of people don't like that because they don't like what comes up. I love it.
But that's the one thing, that's why it's there, is for them to address those issues so that they can get over that.
Exactly.
Yeah, that was beautiful, Michelle. And thank you so much to share that. I'm sure you made a difference in the listener's life who listen to you and realize they don't have to choose business over their private life, or they don't have to choose doing what the outside thinks they should do compared to what makes them joy. So thank you so much. And yeah, I'm so grateful for you that you joined us today and that you shared your inner wisdom and the beauty of what life can be.
Thank you. That's so kind of you. Thank you so much. Oh, thank you.
Love
Thank
you,
you.
Michelle.
Love
And
you too.
so happy to have you on Problem Solve Her. And I'll talk to you soon.
Awesome. Okay.
I'll be speaking to you soon offline.
Yeah.
Thank
Awesome.
you for your time, and we love you. And
Thank you. Thank you for the opportunity. It was fun.
I hope you enjoyed it,
Yes.
and I hope it was worth you not cooking dinner tonight and letting someone else do that for you.
Yep. Super happy for that.
Yeah.
All right, guys, listen, take care. Thank you so much for the invite.
Thank you.
All right, take care.
Have a good night.
Thanks, you too. Bye-bye.
Bye.